Paul Florist, and today in this video we're going to do a foam-free design. Generally what we have in all our cupboards is some glass jars, maybe jam jars, coffee jars, any type of food jars. Just give them a good thorough clean out and put them aside and keep them for making your foam-free designs. We can use anything as a decorative container for the jars if you want to conceal the actual jar itself. For the purpose of today's video, I've decided to go along with the pre-made wooden container. It's made for plants. As you can see, the plastic liners inside, and I'm just going to leave that in while I put the jars. So a selection of different size jars, and just play around with these, putting them in as you think you might need them, and just be careful not to break them. So I'm going to go with the shorter ones, maybe to the front, and you will have to play around with them just to make sure they're all tucked in nicely. So just have them tucked in different shapes. I have a selection here, but I probably won't use all of them, so leave those two to the side. So in between the jars, to stop them from making any noises if you're transporting them or moving them around, and just to stop them maybe from having any breakages, what we have is just some green moss, and we can add that firstly in between the jars. Just tuck it in nice and tightly in between. This will also help to hold them in place, and it's also part of the design. Now there are dried mosses that you can use, and there's other variations of moss that you can use depending on the overall finished look that you want, but I like just the green moss, gives it a more natural feel to this particular container, and we're going to keep it more spring-like as well, so I thought the freshness of the moss. So even if you have older moss that's quite dry, you can use this in between the jars to start with, just to kind of hold them in place, and then maybe more decorative or more green moss, and just tuck that in nicely at the top. So this will be the part that will be visible once the design is finished. So just go ahead and add that to the top. So tuck the older moss to the bottom if you have any, and then it's always a good way, if you're going to make more than one, you can use the older moss to the bottom and then keep the nicer moss to the top as part of the design. Just be careful and dust any loose pieces off. And again, down in between. If it's too small a space, you can just use the edge of the scissors just to tuck that in around the edge. And we'll have a wee bit there. So then, when we're finished with the moss, you just have this lovely natural feeling for the design. So with jars in place, some of the moss there to decorate it, and the moss just softens that edge around the top of the container as well. We'll just add some water, and it's always a good idea to put the water in first before we start designing. Even just a small amount, just to keep the stems hydrated. And then once you have the container in place, you can always go back and top it up then afterwards. So just to start off with this design, I'm going to use some of the lovely lime green conifer with its a lovely spiky texture on it, quite a busy form as well. But this has all been prepared, and remember that when you put this into the water, you don't want any of the small leaves going down into the water. So be careful of your water levels there as well. So we can take off any of the pieces that we don't want. just add that. I'm going to do higher at the back possibly and work the way forward. This is a lovely scent of it as well. Nice fresh smell to the conifer. So that's the benefits of working with it. Your workroom will be lovely and fresh. So there we have just some of the conifer given a nice height to this particular design. And then to go with that, I'm going to add in contrast of the forms and the texture. We have some of this lovely grisolina, again in the same palette, just that wee bit darker of the lime green. And I can add that through. Just go ahead and be creative. Just let the foliage rest where it wants to rest. Once we have more stems in there, we'll be able to hold it better in place. So that's just some of that foliage in place, and you can see the contrast of the different textures on the foliage. So you have the lovely shininess, and that contrasts with the really feathery texture of the conifer. So into this, I'm going to start now and just go ahead and add some of the beautiful forsythia that's in season at this time of year. And this is just starting to come into bloom. So we'll add some of that, and we'll keep it on that lovely lime green, yellow tones. And again, the woody stem, generally I would cut the woody stem and then just cut the stem up, and that just helps it take in a wee bit more, just a little bit more water for you. And again, come down shorter at the front. Or you can make it a more of an all-round design and keep that materials coming all the way around. And even if you are doing a front-facing design, it's nice just to put a wee bit of something to the back, and it just helps draw the eye back into the back of the design and creates a wee bit of depth within the arrangement as well. So there we just have some of the lovely forsythia, adding the yellow to the design. So you can see now the jars are starting to disappear with all the materials that's going in, and into this we want to add in some of the lovely yellow gold striped tulips, which are quite firm and quite straight. And you know that the tulips always does their little bit of dancing when they're arranged into the water or into foam. And they kind of one of the flowers that carry on growing after being cut. So if you need it to be arranged a few days before, it's good just to go ahead and cut the tulips a wee bit shorter than you normally would, because you know within a day or two they will have carried on growing. It's nice just to add these in. And again, we have the contrast on the leaves. It's nice to arrange the flowers with their natural foliage. Just go ahead, adding the tulips in, and just in little clusters as they are when they grow. And they will move about in the jars until you have quite a bit of the foliage in that end, just to hold them in place. Carrying on, bringing them to the different levels, coming to the front. And then in a few days' time, the tulips will have grown a wee bit higher up. Just a few tulips left. Carry on adding these. And the great advantage of using foam free is that we can take our flowers out and put them back in without creating any huge holes that creating the foam, and nothing's ever damaged. So it just makes it easier for taking out and replacing once you have a proper look at it. So just some of the tulips coming through the forsythia and the foliage. Lovely for this time of year, just concentrating on the yellows and the greens. So I think some of the pittosporum, again, lovely smaller foliages on it, long lasting. And the thing about this type of design, when you create with the foliage and the forsythia, which lasts quite some time, as the tulips die off and come to the end of their lifespan, you can keep the overall design and just take out the tulips and add in fresh tulips or daffodils or any other type of flowers. And these spring flowers always work better in fresh water anyway, rather than putting them into oasis foam. So they will last longer, and just keep them topped up with water. Just that little bit of pittosporum there to the base. Some of the silver Sussex, just for that slight contrast in colour, and the silvery grey just helps the yellow pop. So we'll just add some of that again, coming up through the design, and the tips of it are quite a greeny tone, which leads us back then to the yellows and the greens of the other foliages that we've selected here today. A bit more interest. So beautiful selection there of foliages, and as I say, the forsythia, the tulips, and the different types of foliage as well. Different forms, different textures, all working off each other and enhancing the other. And then I think just at the base of that, I'm going to add in some of the amimage, the Queen Anne's lace. And we'll just bring that right to the very base of the design. And this is beautiful and strong. And we'll just layer that at the bottom. A wee bit off, just slightly shorter. Now there's just one idea that I've shared with you today in the video. A foam-free design using your jars, so you can upcycle your jars, and you can upcycle any other containers. So I hope this has inspired you to get creative and do something unusual for many occasions. If you have liked this video or want to see more, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel Paul Florist, and share this video out with anyone else that might be interested in getting new ideas and creating some unusual designs. In the meantime, enjoy creating with foam free, and I look forward to seeing all your creations soon. Thank you.